Yes, indeed. I promise you will learn something as you listen to this edition of the Larry Elder Show. The great sage of South Central, the man who should be the governor of South Central, is giving a speech to the good folks in Phoenix this evening. And so he has asked me to fill the void. And while the truth of the matter is no one can fill the Larry Elder void, I am going to occupy the time to the best of my ability, speaking with his incredible and extraordinarily intelligent audience. And that's not me buttering you up. That's me talking from experience. Every time I sit down and I talk to the Larry Elder audience, I feel good. I feel smart. Not because I'm smart, but because I learn so much from them. That would be you. And that's why I'm so happy to be with you. My name is Bob France. I'm coming to you live from AM 1420, The Answer. That, for the day, for the night, is the ReliefFactor.com studios. It's in Cleveland, Ohio, in case you haven't heard of it. My program airs in the mornings in the Eastern time zone from 9 until 11 a.m. If you are ever so inclined to tune in, because maybe you like what you hear tonight on the Larry Elder Show or this afternoon, depending on where you are, you are certainly welcome to do that by going to WHKRadio.com. That's my home base, as I say. But I'm so glad to be sitting in for Larry, on this Tuesday evening. It is just 8 minutes past the hour, and they're still deliberating. Apparently, there was a vote, if you will, among the jurors in Kenosha, Wisconsin, about whether or not they wanted to keep deliberating tonight. Personally, I find this very, very troubling because it should not have taken this long. The Rittenhouse judge, Judge Schrader, has asked the jury if they want to stay and keep on going or call it a night, while more and more and more activists, and I'll use that word until they become something other than activists. We know that that is very likely a possibility. But while more and more activists who are going to wait till they hear the verdict to determine whether or not they will be arsonists. Activists, arsonist. Depends on the time of the night and depends on what that jury says. If the jury says something they don't like, well, it will be a mostly peaceful protest that leads to the mostly burnt down city of Kenosha. Activists, assaulters. Which will they be? Depends on the time of the night, depends on what that verdict is. They're going to wave their flags, or not their flags, their signs. They don't believe in the flag. At least those who believe in the rule of law. Those who believe in the Constitution, those who believe in the concept of self-defense when being attacked, they'll wave their signs because they don't believe in the flag. They don't believe in this country. They don't believe in what the rule of law is. And they'll wave their signs and they'll scream somehow, some way that there is a racial component to the situation in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in which one white male is accused of killing 3 or shooting 3 and killing 2 also white males. They're going to claim that it's racially motivated. Joe Brandon literally declared Kyle Rittenhouse, the defendant in this case, a white supremacist back last year in 2020 when he was still the candidate, before he became Let's Go Brandon, when he was still just Joe Biden. Declared Kyle Rittenhouse was a white supremacist because he shot 3 white people. What? Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about that one. But apparently, if a white kid from the dual states of Illinois and Wisconsin, and by the way, is this the first time you found out that Kyle Rittenhouse actually had a reason to be in Kenosha? Because last year, and for the past 12 months-ish, the story from the mainstream media has been that this 17-year-old white supremacist vigilante crossed state lines with a weapon that he wasn't allowed to have, and he certainly wasn't allowed to cross state lines with, to go to Kenosha and shoot Black Lives Matter peaceful protesters. That's the narrative that we heard. He had no business in Kenosha. He didn't live there. He took a trip to go and be a vigilante. This was the narrative of the course over the course of the last, year and a half. Man, close. Year and a quarter. This is what we've been told, right? Never mind the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse had a mom who lived in Illinois and a dad who lived in Kenosha. You know, sometimes that happens. Parents divorce. Sometimes you have situations in which kids have dual households or two households or live in two different places. Dad lives in Kenosha. They're 20 minutes apart. It's like you driving to your commute, but perhaps even shorter. He drove from mom's house to dad's place in Kenosha because he cared about the town. And you know the story from here. He brought a medical kit, a first aid kit, to try to help anybody who got hurt. He brought cleaning supplies so that he could scrub some of the racist and the horrific graffiti off of the buildings there that were being targeted for vandalism. He tried to put out fires again to try to save businesses in Kenosha. And yes, he brought a gun. Not across state lines, however. That was strike one for the mainstream legacy media. He didn't bring the gun across state lines. He acquired it when he crossed into Wisconsin and went to Kenosha. And he brought his gun for what he obviously needed: self-protection. In the event that he is accosted, he was not going to be victimized, which is, of course, exactly what happened to him. So here we are now, a year and a quarter later. It's been, 12, 14 months, 15 months? I don't know. I don't have the exact date. But here we are. And the prosecution has gone to great lengths to establish that the narrative told by the mainstream media is true. That this 17-year-old vigilante, this cop wannabe, goes and sticks his nose into a place where it doesn't belong so that he can shoot people up at a Black Lives Matter / Antifa rally, which of course doubles as riot, and arson, and assault, and vandalism party. That's what Antifa and BLM riots usually, or rallies usually devolve into. That he goes there simply to cause that. You remember the media, right? You remember what the media said about Kyle Rittenhouse before one single shred of evidence was revealed? One single bit of proof was revealed? You remember what the legacy media said, don't you?
Kenosha shooter, Kyle Rittenhouse, he murdered 2 people, by the way.
Rittenhouse is basically what you would have had in a school shooter. He's a 17-year-old kid. He shouldn't have had a gun. He crossed state lines to supposedly protect property. No, he was going out to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a vigilante.
Kyle Rittenhouse, the armed teenage vigilante.
A 17-year-old vigilante, arguably a domestic terrorist, picked up a rifle, drove to a different state to shoot people.
Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who's deeply racist, went with weapons to a Black Lives Matter.
Now, mind you, each and every one of these leftist talking heads that I'm playing for you right now, not a clue of what they're talking about. Never heard the kid's name before, but they call him deeply racist and white supremacist, and that he came there to shoot people and acted as if he was an active shooter, as if this was a theater, a school, an office building, one of the sad, tragic incidents we have seen, a concert in which an active shooter goes around and just starts randomly drilling people, bang, bang, bang. That's the way they wanted to portray Kyle Rittenhouse, and have over the course of the last year plus.
Protest, looking to get in trouble. He did. He murdered a couple of people.
Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old kid, just running around, shooting and killing protesters.
You see the 17-year-old who was radicalized by Trumpism, took his AR-15 to Kenosha and became a killer.
And that's the money line right there. Because he's white, and because he is there trying to stop the destruction of a city by leftists, he must be radicalized by Trump. That was the narrative that we were going to get out of this. Well, fast forward, here we are now in the middle of his trial, and after a week and a half of the worst prosecutorial misconduct and mishandling of the situation, Kyle Rittenhouse is now his fate is in the jury's hands. We're going to discuss that in some depth coming up as we continue on the Larry Elder Show.
Starting now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
What, is he charged with first-degree murder?
That's right, 2 counts.
How is that possible? It's an altercation. I mean, first-degree murder is where you're like, I'm going to murder this person and go to their home with, not some sort of bar fight gone wrong.
Yeah, so you're right, actually. That would be, what you're talking about would potentially be either voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, that's what I never understood about this.
Or second-degree murder because it was more indiscriminate. What they're saying is, what the prosecution's argument is that Kyle Rittenhouse brought his gun because he intended to murder these BLM protesters and that he had a vengeful intent. Now, what's interesting to me is that the prosecution just a few minutes ago before I came on the show just rested in this case after about a week and a half of testimony. They did not present a single shred of evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse showed up with intent to hurt anyone.
Well, but this is what I can't understand, is that the judge, the pretrial, arguments, because this is just, you have months to submit, motions to dismiss. You're trying to tell me no one looked at this? They say, wait a second. You're charging a guy who got in an altercation was, by the way, the guy that Kyle Rittenhouse killed in self-defense was like a child rapist or something, right? He was like a child pedophile or something. Is that right?
Multiple count child rapist. And honestly,
I'm not saying he deserves to die because of it, but
right.
Let's
the
just
details of that case, if anyone wants to see it, it's absolutely horrific.
This is not Gandhi, okay? Let's just.
But what's interesting, what's actually relevant to this is that he had just been released from a hospital where he was being held on a psychiatric hold.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
The Pilgrims. They were poor. They were outcasts. They were enemies of the state for their refusal to submit to the Church of England.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible.
Not only did they start self-rule, they started free trade, capitalism, land ownership, all in 10 years with 51 people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to Salem Now.
Yeah, that's good advice. No question about that. 20 minutes after the hour. Thanks for being with us. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be listening to The Larry Elder Show. My name is Bob France, sitting in for The Sage, live here in Cleveland, Ohio. AM 1420, The Answer is the home base. Good to have you aboard if you're listening to, by the way, really cool options now. In addition to, of course, LarryElder.com and Town Hall TV. Have you tried the new Salem News Channel app? Very, very cool. Free. Just go to your app store, download Salem News Channel app. You can watch the live show that's on right now, which would be this one. You can also watch and listen to the other tremendous Salem nationally syndicated programs as well that have aired earlier today, and in the past. It's a great, great, great source to be able to listen to the best conservative talk radio in America, bar none. So we're talking about Kyle Rittenhouse and the case in which he, of course, was deemed to be a terrorist, a domestic terrorist. And I want to get to something about what happened in the closing argument yesterday before we move on. And we're all waiting for the verdict right now. The latest that I have in front of me, by the way, is that the Rittenhouse jury has been asked by the judge if they want to stay and continue this deliberation, or if they want to go ahead and call it a night and come back tomorrow. Still don't have an answer, except for the fact that they're still there, so maybe the answer is yes. But we don't have a definitive answer where they say we're going to stay until we're done. They are just there. So we're all in a waiting game right now. And outside of the Kenosha courthouse, there are, of course, activists who are waiting to be arsonists, many of them anyway. Which, of course, begs the question, what in the world are they waiting for? If you watched any of that trial on television over the course of the last several days, what you saw was a case that should never have been brought forth. Now, this isn't just talk show host guy talking here. What I am watching and listening to are the opinions and the expert legal analyses of law professors, of current trial lawyers, of retired trial lawyers, who have literally said, with the evidence that they brought to this case, it never should have been brought to a judge in front of a jury. They had no evidence whatsoever to refute Kyle Rittenhouse's declaration of self-defense, because the videos show it all. The videos show him running from his attackers, not stalking people and shooting them. The video shows him being hit with a skateboard. The videos show him having a gun pointed at him before he fired to stop from being shot. The videos show him getting kicked in the face and chased between a couple of cars before he stops and turns around and kills the attacker who is already assaulting him. The videos are very, very clear and very evident. That's one of the strange things about, strange is different things. How about that? About news and about trials and about these kinds of things in 2021, in the video era, in the cell phone. Everybody is videotaping and recording everyone else. I mean, I wish we had this in 1994. I really do. I really wish Nicole had been filming OJ when he first came at her with that knife. I wish Ron Goldman would have had something rolling as he was being attacked, because then we wouldn't have to worry about juries botching the entire thing. I talked about this a little bit on my local program in Cleveland, Ohio this morning, and I want to talk about it with you, Larry Elder's esteemed audience, particularly the Los Angeles audience. We all know what happened, and this is why I am very concerned about what's going on right now. What happened in 1994-95 was the greatest miscarriage of justice, or one of them, in American jurisprudence history, in American judicial history, criminal justice history, whatever you want to call it. Let's put it to you this way. The reason why now, how many years are we past? We are 25 years past the OJ Simpson verdict. Is that right? 95 to 26 years? The only reason they're not still hunting for the killer of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman 26 years later is because after the acquittal of OJ Simpson, which means, of course, he's innocent, right? Because every time they started to rehunt the evidence, all of it, not some of it, not a little bit of it, not most of it, not the all of it continued to point to OJ Simpson. And OJ Simpson was set free. Now, the reason O.J. Simpson was set free, twofold. Number one, there was an extraordinary racial element to that case, even though O.J. Simpson was considered by most of white America to be white. He's a movie star. He's a Hall of Fame running back. He's funny in the goofy Leslie Nielsen movies, the what are they called on the top of my head? The Naked Gun movies, thank you. Everybody loved him. So it shouldn't have been a racial situation, but he is African-American, and 3 years after the Rodney King riots and the Rodney King trials of officers and the Rodney King officers' acquittals, there was a desperate need in black America for a little bit of payback. And that's what the O.J. Simpson trial became. Never mind the fact that he brutally beheaded two people. And when I say beheaded, I don't know if they came all the way off, but you know the story by now, and I will not be graphic. It was pretty doggone close. It was just one of the most barbaric things that one can even imagine. He did this to two white people, and immediately this became a Black America wants OJ to get off as revenge for the Rodney King verdicts. White America stood there with their eyes bugging out of their heads, backing away slowly and saying, okay, because what could they say? I was a teacher at the time. I was teaching at a relatively urban school, a diverse school, and I had probably 2/3 of African-American students in my class, about 1/3 Caucasian or other ethnicities. And the verdict came down on television, as you know, and I was in class at the time that happened, and you could not believe the explosion of joy when OJ Simpson, who was clearly as guilty as the day is long, was acquitted. And the explosion of joy came from the African-American students in my room and across that school. The white students didn't complain. They just sat there, again, not willing to move. Now, as we look back at that 26 years later, and for the last 26 years, people have wondered what on earth could have led that jury to make such an atrocious decision. And like I said, I think many of us know the answer. There was a real, genuine threat of mass carnage in Los Angeles and in major cities, urban centers around America that would have made the Rodney King riots, which were impossible to wrap your brain about in terms of the violence and the scope of the people who were victimized and attacked. It would have made the Rodney King riots look like a carnival, like people having fun at the merry-go-round. That jury came back with a verdict that stopped America from burning. And many legal scholars at the time and since then have said that's exactly why they came back with what they did. I'm not saying the Rittenhouse case is quite the size and the scope of the OJ verdict, but I will tell you this, that despite a defendant being as clearly on video innocent as this particular defendant is, there is a jury that is right now inside that deliberation room terrified of what their acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse is going to cause. Is that what's taking so long? Let's discuss on The Larry Elder Show.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Is the beast ever going to act like they're fair? Are they? We'd be treated to a 24/7 barrage of condemnation if Donald Trump referred to Satchel Paige as a Negro. In May of 2016, Barack Obama signed a law banning the use of the word from the federal government. In 2013, the Census Department banned the word. We don't say Negro. And if you slip when you're a Democrat mush brain president, you get all kinds of cover from the media. Now, if you're a sportscaster and you say something on air that sounds like the N-word, your career is finished. You're over.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one.
I have to tell you, I haven't sat in front of a lot of judges in real time. I did it once for a speeding ticket in my life. I have watched many trials on TV, real ones. I don't think I've ever seen a judge as pissed as that. He actually looked, if you weren't watching on the video, he looked infuriated. He was jumping up in his seat and he said, "Don't get brazen with me," to the deputy district attorney.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
Trending now.
All right, 34 minutes past the hour. Bob France sitting in for Larry Elder, reminding you that you know MyPillow doesn't have their box stores or any shopping channels, right? They've been part of the cancel culture, and they want to pass the savings directly on to you as a result of that. You can now get the lowest price in the history of MyPillow for their classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98. What? Yeah, that's with your promo code. They also have queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98 with a promo code. King size was $89.98, now $29.98 with your promo code. MyPillow is not just pillows. They have over 150 products, everything from sleepwear to new beds that Larry has put together. Promo code also works on mystore.com and frankspeech.com. Just go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-890-1843. Use the promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on his standard MyPillow. That's mypillow.com, promo code Larry, or 1-800-890-1843. Okay, so I want to find out, are you concerned at all about the Kyle Rittenhouse jury, which quite frankly was already threatened publicly by individuals who have reported that they are recording the jurors, taking pictures of them, and are prepared to dox them if they come back with an acquittal that somehow somebody believes would be proof of his white supremacy, even though he shot white people. Are you concerned about the fact that protesters are gathering outside and are ready? And that's all I can say about it. They are ready to start doing what they did after Jacob Blake was shot while he was grabbing a knife and after he had already assaulted a woman. And we all know the story of Jacob Blake, and they were rallying against cops not because Jacob Blake's rights were violated by cops, but because it was a summer to rally against cops. It was a summer to burn, a summer to loot, to pillage, to steal, to smash, to vandalize, to grab, to assault, to protest peacefully. Yeah, thank you, Sean. To protest peacefully for 5 minutes until it became time to, do the things that leftists and radicals do. So, If you don't think that they're ready to do that again if they get the wrong verdict, you're obviously mistaken. You're not paying attention. The question becomes, is the jury going to be intimidated by that? Do you know that the crowds of protesters are so loud outside that Kenosha courthouse now, reporters inside are saying you can hear them clearly in the courtroom. So if you can hear the protesters, who are, by the way, in my opinion, this is a horrific job of crowd control by police, by the National Guardsmen who are all deployed and standing by. It's a terrible job of crowd control. They shouldn't be allowed that close to the courthouse to the point where their chants and their screams and their threats can be heard by an impressionable jury. But that's what's going on. So do you believe there is a chance that if Kyle Rittenhouse is convicted, it wasn't by the evidence, that it was clearly by an intimidated, terrified jury of individuals who were worried for their own safety when they were done? And it didn't mean right immediately after. Yeah, they could be protected now, but their information given out, them, you know, their names, phone numbers, addresses, and so on and so forth, that's what being doxxed means. That they're terrified, or could be terrified, of retribution from the crowd that is demanding Kyle Rittenhouse's head. Which, by the way, is why we're here, because there was a crowd demanding Kyle Rittenhouse's head last summer when all of this went down. I mentioned the prosecutor a few moments ago, and I just want to share this part of the closing arguments from Thomas Binger, who I truly believe received his degree from the Lionel Hutz School of Law. I mean that very seriously. But Thomas Binger, the prosecutor in this case, literally tried to tell the jury that Kyle Rittenhouse is guilty because he loses the right to self-defense because he brought a gun, which would mean that any and every concealed carry permit holder in this country, if you are carrying your weapon lawfully, as Kyle Rittenhouse was, if you carry your weapon lawfully and you are attacked in public, you have to take your beating. You cannot fight back with your weapon, which is why, of course, one carries a weapon lawfully for self-defense. Thomas Binger said you lose the right to self-defense when you bring a gun. Now, I've got 10 seconds left in this segment, so I won't be able to give you Thomas Binger right now, but I promise you, Thomas Binger and that part of our conversation is coming up. And I welcome you, by the way, 888-971-SAGE, 888-971-7243. We'll be right back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody. Because he was black. You need to wake up.
Jewish house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga.
Oh, okay. That's a big difference.
You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
Bedwench,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
house Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a coon award over there. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
History-making tax and spend disaster. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And this is why people were so angry at the Republicans in the Senate and the House who have supported Biden's scheme. Did you hear Trump was giving a speech Monday night? The Republican Congressional Committee had a dinner, and he blasted the 13 Republicans in the House. I think Nicole Maliotakis was in the room. She had to be squirming. Because I'm sure President Trump held back, as he does. I'm sure he was very genteel and, very discreet.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The recent war on history threatens to erase America's past. The Pilgrims, hailed by Movie Guide as inspiring, combats the lies to reveal America's true history.
They were poor. They were outcasts. They were enemies of the state for their refusal to submit to the Church of England.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible. The idea of self-government and rule from within, all these are within that body of Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
Find out what everyone is talking about. Watch this new documentary to see God's providence in the lives of the Pilgrims.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You know, this could be an FM music channel. I mean, seriously, and I would listen to it. I just love the vibe when I sit in for Larry Elder. Just terrific music bumps. Thank you very much, DJ Sean. Hey, Bob Franz sitting in for Larry Elder, the great sage, live in the ReliefFactor.com studios here in Cleveland, Ohio. We are launching something huge. You already know about it. We want you to be a part of it. If you like listening to the Larry Elder Show, you will love watching it, too, on the new app, SalemNewsChannel.com. It's an app, and it's a website, of course. Load it on the Apple or Android store, or watch it on Roku. Just type in Salem News Channel into the search bar. Come check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media, and soon we will be adding new TV-only hours. This is going to make us bigger and better. Thank you so much for all you do to make this successful. We are on a mission. You are a huge part of it, every listener to the Larry Elder Show, and we are very, very deeply appreciative of that. I want to give you the quick clip from Thomas Binger. Thomas Binger, the prosecutor, who, by the way, and I think we should be fair to this poor guy, this poor sap got dragged into this, probably kicking and screaming, because the actual prosecutor, the lead prosecutor, the district attorney in Kenosha, Wisconsin, should be trying this case. But the district attorney in Kenosha, Wisconsin, knows this case is a loser that has only been brought for political reasons in the first place. He knows full well that this is going to be an embarrassing loss, and he didn't want to take the L. So he shoved faux hawk wearing Binger. Yeah, he's a grown man, and he's wearing a child's faux hawk. The kind I used to put in my son's hair when he was like 5, where you put some gel in there and you push it up so it looks like a mohawk. He wears that as a grown man, as he argues that you lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun. Listen carefully.
Convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant, because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people.
Thomas Binger literally just revoked the concealed carry rights of every American, telling them that you lose the right to defend yourself if you bring a gun, which is generally bought for what? for self-defense. He went on to say, this graduate of the Lionel Hutz School of Law, that you don't bring a gun to a fist fight. As if Kyle Rittenhouse, who was entering a violent, and he knew it was going to be violent, that's why he brought self-defense, but he knew he was walking into a violent situation in which gunfire was already being heard. Kyle Rittenhouse is supposed to know, but anybody who attacks him is only going to be attacking him with fists, and you're going to have to put your fists up to defend yourself. That's the only way you can fight somebody and you can defend yourself against somebody who's attacking you with fists and feet, is with your own. You see, because mutual combat is the only thing that's legal here. Mutual combat. You have to outfight somebody else if you want to save your life. I'd really, really like to know if Thomas Ringer has ever heard of the FBI crime statistics, which show you that every year there are far more people killed by fists and feet than there are by AR-15s every year in this country. People are beaten to death routinely. Don't bring a gun, just bring your fists. And to that 65-year-old woman, by the way, that 65-year-old woman who works in a very dangerous place, a dangerous area, or who is just going out into a place that may or may not be, let's say she's going to a Broadway play. Let's say she's going to a ball game with her family. Whatever the case might be, a mugger attacks her, and she's got that little .38 special in her purse to defend herself. Put that away and put up your dukes, lady. Get them up there. That's the only way you're allowed to fight, because if you shoot that guy who's assaulting you, you are the aggressor. You have brought the gun, and thus you are the one responsible for the provocation in that physical encounter. You can't use the gun if you bring the gun. That is what we have heard from Thomas Binger, who I swear is a cartoon character.
I move for a bad court thingy. You mean a mistrial? Yeah. That's why you're the judge and I'm the law-talking guy. The lawyer. Right.
I think that was actually Thomas Binger from another trial. At any rate, Thomas Binger has declared that self-defense is no longer allowed in the United States of America, and I'll tell you this. Why am I focusing on this? Why am I dragging this out? If this jury, out of fear for violence, arson, vandalism, and worse in Kenosha, which they already experienced a year ago, and there are businesses who have never reopened, businesses that never will reopen. This is not a guarantee. There is no guarantee that all of the businesses that get destroyed are going to have insurance and be able to rebuild, and a couple of months later, nothing ever happens. Some of these people's livelihoods are taken away forever. And in the period of time in which they're waiting for their places to reopen, workers lose their jobs forever. If this jury comes back afraid of that and convicts Kyle Rittenhouse on that basis, then forever the case of Wisconsin versus Rittenhouse 2021 will be used as precedent and legal citation by attorneys when victims of violent crimes defend themselves and kill their attackers. You understand that? I don't care if you live in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Boise, Idaho, Cleveland, Ohio, Los Angeles, California, Austin, Texas. You get attacked by somebody, you shoot and kill them, you are going to go on trial for your life, and they will cite the Rittenhouse case from 2021 as evidence that you can indeed convict somebody who is being beaten, assaulted, or threatened with a gun. You can convict them of murder. Now, is that what you want to see happen? Because that's what's coming. If this case... if this jury is too afraid to do the right thing because they're terrified of what the aftermath in their community is going to be. All right. I told you I want to take your phone calls, and I do, but I'm going to be short on time in this segment. So do me a favor. Let's fill them up right now. Those of you who are on hold, stay there. Those of you who are not yet on hold, get there. 888-971-SAGE. That's 888-971-7243. I do want to hear from you. Next, what are your thoughts on what the jury will do in the Rittenhouse case? Are you afraid? Are you afraid that if this case doesn't lead to a self-defense acquittal, no case ever will? We'll be right back on The Larry Elder Show.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody. Because he was black. You need to wake up.
You was house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga. Oh, okay. That's a big difference. You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
Bedwench,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
house Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a coon award over there. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, 6 minutes now, just 5 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks for being with us. My name is Bob. I'm sitting in for the Sage, who is in Phoenix, giving a speech this evening to a tremendously appreciative and very fortunate crowd. I think I can say that with some degree of certainty. I come to you live from... Oh, it's more than just Larry. I didn't realize that. I was told Larry was giving a speech. I guess he's the headliner then, because Prager and Kirk are taking a back seat to the Sage tonight. And I won't say that to Prager, by the way. Maybe say it to Kirk. I don't know. Anyway, good to be with you. I'm live in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's go to some phone calls. We're going to start out with San Antonio, Texas. Eugene, you are on the Larry Elder Show. Bob France sitting in. Good evening. Go right ahead.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me on the show tonight. Just wanted to give kind of an analogy of what I've been seeing going on in our country in the media. I was telling your screener that the way I view things is back sort of like in Jesus' time, and I'm not trying to compare anybody to Jesus, but the Pharisees are basically the media at this point, and the media is telling everybody to chant for Barabbas, and everybody's going along with it, like chant for Barabbas, you know? And my fear necessarily is that the jury may come back with a guilty verdict, not because he's guilty, because they're afraid of the crowd. And we're going to be looking 1,000, 2,000 years from now as like people who are fools.
Well, I don't know about the 2,000 years into the future thing. I don't think people are going to remember the name Kyle Rittenhouse the way they do the name of Christ the Savior. But I will say this, my friend. You're right. It's a great comparison, the biblical comparison to a jury, deciding based on the potential violence of a crowd to make a decision that is an unjust one. And in the case that you brought up, of course, the crowd chanted to free Barabbas, and Pilate, fearing a revolt of the crowd, if he said, no, I'm going to free Jesus of Nazareth, we know the rest of the story. It's a good analogy, and it kind of fits with the point I was making before. If this jury, and by the way, update, just got the update during that last break. If this jury has ended their deliberations for the evening, they will return tomorrow. So they're done for the evening. If this jury comes back with a verdict of guilty, it will not be based on evidence. It will not be based on actual facts. It will not be based on what came from the witness chair. It will come from fear of what happens outside of that courtroom in the city of Kenosha and in their personal lives as they are doxxed and as they are threatened by radical activists who want to see Kyle Rittenhouse hang. Heidi's in Seneca, South Carolina. Heidi, go right ahead.
Yes, I was just listening, and I feel like there's been a systematic attack on all jurors and all over the country, setting them up for fear to be on any jury and make any decision. And with this ranting and raving and knowing that the people could be doxxed, they could be they're followed, they could be followed home. Things could happen to them.
You're not wrong. Heidi, that's a great point, and I'm glad you made it to end this hour of the broadcast. That you are not wrong. They are terrifying juries everywhere. We'll be right back.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
What, is he charged with first-degree murder?
That's right, 2 counts.
How is that possible? It's an altercation. I mean, first-degree murder is where you're like, I'm going to murder this person and go to their home with, not some sort of bar fight gone wrong.
Yeah, so you're right, actually. That would be, what you're talking about would potentially be either voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, that's what I never understood about this.
Or second-degree murder because it was more indiscriminate. What they're saying is, what the prosecution's argument is that Kyle Rittenhouse brought his gun because he intended to murder these BLM protesters and that he had vengeful intent. Now, what's interesting to me is that the prosecution just a few minutes ago before I came on the show just rested in this case after about a week and a half of testimony. They did not present a single shred of evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse showed up with intent to hurt anyone.
Well, but this is what I can't understand, is that the judge, the pretrial, arguments, because this is just, you have months to submit, motions to dismiss. You're trying to tell me no one looked at this? They say, wait a second. You're charging a guy who got in an altercation was, by the way, the guy that Kyle Rittenhouse killed in self-defense was like a child rapist or something, right? He was like a child pedophile or something. Is that right?
Multiple count child rapist. And honestly, the
I'm not saying he deserves to die because of it, but
right.
Let's
the details of that case, if anyone wants to see it, it's absolutely horrific.
This is not Gandhi, okay? Let's just.
But what's interesting, though, what's actually relevant to this is that he had just been released from a hospital where he was being held on a psychiatric hold.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Creeps who've had some financial success in life. We're the bad. We need to be punished. Although not Pawlowski. Did you hear she pushed back on the capital gains tax increase? She didn't like that, and she's a wealthy woman. But anyway, it turns out the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center has taken a look at Build Back Better. They're saying about 30% of middle-income households will be taxed and pay additional taxes, have a tax increase in 2022. Whoops! No, say it isn't so, Joe. Say it isn't so. Come on.
Come on, man.
Did you lie to us again? Did you not tell the truth? And some low and middle class and middle income households, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center, which has reviewed Build Back Better, they will pay more per year in taxes if the plan is implemented. You know, obviously they sat around the White House, they said, let's try this. Let's say that this massive spending won't cost anything. You know, it'll be a little bit like Biden calling Satchel Paige a Negro, and then we'll say he didn't call Satchel Paige a Negro. We'll see if they buy it. It doesn't cost a thing. It's free. Just like free college is really free. Wink, wink. Bunch of liars.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I've just heard so much about this, and nobody seems to be taking it seriously.
This is the exact reason that in normal science, this is not normal science by any stretch of the imagination, we do benefit risk analysis. And obviously that is different for each person. But here we're not doing that. We're just saying everybody needs to do this. And we're completely neglecting natural immunity, which is extremely important. We've recognized it for decades and decades before now. Now they won't even want to talk about it or acknowledge it at all.
What do you reckon is behind that? I mean, this is a big thing. What can be behind something like that?
Well, I can't think of any scientific valid reason for doing it. You know, there could be political reasons or other things going on, but I can't think of any scientific reason why you would ignore the evidence and the facts and just push a one-size-fits-all ideology.
We also know that many people have objections to these vaccines because all three of them, in one way or the other, involved aborted children. There's no getting around that. And so if somebody has an objection to that, how is it that the government can wipe away religious liberty and say, you've got to get this, if you want to keep your job, you've got to get this?
You know, for the government to mandate away your religious liberty is a real issue. And even the federal court has recognized that and put a stay on the mandate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
I can't talk over Heatwave. I'm sorry. I just need to listen. I was supposed to start 15 seconds ago. What can I tell you? You get a vibe. You don't want to interrupt it by flapping your gums over it. You just kind of dance. Or in my case, since I can't dance with my feet, I can do great chair dances, boy. If I'm seated, man, I can move. I'm great. Put my feet into the equation. Done. Gone. Falling most of the time. Welcome to the Larry Elder Show. Bob Prince sitting in for the Sage of South Central, taking your phone calls. Primarily for now on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, which, by the way, has been adjourned for the evening. The negotiations, the deliberations, rather, of the jury have ended. The judge let them decide if they wanted to go past 5 o'clock Central Time, if they wanted to go past 6 o'clock. Basically told them, when you're ready to call it a night, you have my permission to call it a night and start again tomorrow. Most observers didn't think it would take this long, because the trial was an embarrassing display of prosecution, political prosecution, frankly, in a case for which there was just simply no evidence whatsoever of murder and the most severe charges in this case. So we're taking your calls on that at 877, or excuse me, I keep saying 877, apologies, 888-97-1-SAGE, 888-971-SAGE. That's 888-971-7243. As we get to your phone calls. I want to point something out. There are multiple stories now of clashes already happening outside of that Kenosha courtroom, and now they're done for the night. You understand? They're done for the night. And yet the clashes are going on. Is this going to go on through the night, even though the jury's gone home? Or wherever they're being sequestered, if that's the case? Are they going to continue to just stand out there until tomorrow morning, or is everybody going to go home? Are the protesters, the would-be soon-to-be rioters, ready to go? Now, if you look at, or they're going to go home and come back tomorrow too. If you look at a couple of things here with respect to that, you might say to yourself, well, look, Bob, there are equal combatants out there, because there are people out there supporting Kyle Rittenhouse, and there are people out there holding signs supporting the conviction of Kyle Rittenhouse and declaring that he's a white supremacist murderer because a white guy, shot 3 white guys who attacked him. I'm still trying to find that part out, the white supremacist part. But at any rate, you say, look, they're both out there, so how can you say this is one side or the other? Let me just ask you very directly, and you can literally call 888-971-SAGE with the answer. When Governor Evers went ahead and put 500 National Guardsmen on standby in Kenosha, 500 Wisconsin National Guard troops on standby in Kenosha, why do you think he put them there? Do you think he put them there because Rittenhouse supporters, if they hear that he is convicted, are going to burn Kenosha? Or do you think they're there because if Rittenhouse is acquitted, violent, leftist, Antifa, and BLM rioters will do what rioters do and burn the city to the ground? If you think for 1 second that the governor of Wisconsin fears Rittenhouse supporters setting fires if Kyle is convicted, then you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to the culture in which we are living, in the country in which we are living, or anything of the sort. This is because, typically speaking, and I've talked about the OJ trial before, when people, I won't turn this into Republicans and Democrats, or even conservatives and liberals or leftists, when people who believe in law and order see a miscarriage of justice in their eyes, in a matter of law and order, they complain, they gripe, they may go to their social media platforms and speak out. They don't set fires. All right? That's just the reality. Look at all of the riots that we have seen, whether it's in Seattle, in the CHOP zone, or the Chaz zone, in Oakland, in Cleveland, in Detroit, in St. Louis. I mean, we don't need to name them all, but you understand, right, that every single one of those cities and communities that were subjected to burning, looting, attacking, assaulting, vandalizing, all of those things were led by leftist organizations like Antifa and BLM. That's just the fact. It's not disputable. You can't debate that. It's just reality. Now, I know the left will come back with, what about January 6th? Okay, what about January 6th? First of all, I would not call that a riot to the level of some of the things we are talking about. Nothing was set aflame. 90% of the people who breached the Capitol on January 6th went inside and took selfies and said, look at this, we're in the Capitol building. And that's because they walked in there peacefully into entrances into the Capitol that were opened up by police officers who stood to the side and moved the bike racks out of the way, the restraining bike racks, and said, go on in. People went in there, took pictures, and said, wow, we're actually here. And then they left. A tiny, tiny minority of individuals engaged in any kind of criminal activity whatsoever beyond the actual entrance of the building. But nobody set anything on fire. Nobody was killed. Nobody was shot. Nobody who was being accused of insurrection brought a weapon with which to insurrect. So they can play that game all they want, but the reality of it is when cities burn, when neighborhoods and towns are destroyed, they're destroyed almost exclusively by leftist organizations. So why are the troops, the National Guard, out in Kenosha? It's not because of Kyle Rittenhouse supporters. And I want to clarify something, too. Let me play this real quick for you. And I'll clarify. People who are law and order minded are not seeing Kyle. Let me rephrase. Some people are. I have seen online people saying that kid's a hero. And most of the heroic praise that is being thrown on Kyle Rittenhouse is because of what his intentions were. He went into the town in which his father lived, where he lives part-time because he's got a mother in Illinois and a father in Kenosha, Wisconsin. They're 20 miles apart. He goes back and forth. It's his community, too. He went there with the intention of treating people, brought his first aid kit, was wearing his rubber gloves so he doesn't get blood, if he's got to handle people who are in serious medical situations. He spent the day, in the daylight hours, scrubbing graffiti off the walls of businesses. And then when fire started, he was trying to put fires out. So in that sense, some people are saying he was a hero because he was trying to do good in a moment of very, very bad. I won't argue that one way or the other. But I will say this. Those of us who are believers in law and order want justice to be done. And in this case, Kyle Rittenhouse is not a hero because he shot 3 people, the way the left wants to portray those of us who support him in this particular legal matter. He's not a hero. He's just somebody who was refusing to be a victim. And there's a big difference. He went there to do some good. He got himself attacked by unprovoked by a child predator, a violent child predator, another violent felon, and another idiot who chased him and beat him with a skateboard. He got attacked by 3 different men and was chased as he fled for his life. And it's all on tape. So when he defends himself, I think a lot of us who believe in law and order are seeing ourselves saying, what would we do? What would you do? Now, you might say, I wouldn't have gone in the first place. Fine. I could respond with, the child predator and the domestic abuser and the other felons shouldn't have gone there to riot and destroy. Right? But people did. People went for various reasons. One group of people attacked. Another person defended. I don't see, and I don't think most of us see, Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero. We just see him as somebody who defended himself as we might. And because of that, we can relate. We can associate, and we want justice to be done, because if Kyle Rittenhouse goes to prison for the rest of his life, if Kyle Rittenhouse goes to prison for 5 days, we are all in very serious jeopardy, because how will we ever be able to defend ourselves? This is not about hero worshiping. This is about protection of law and order. More of your phone calls coming up next on The Larry Elder Show.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
and we are going to bring in innovative charter schools. Most people don't know that public charter schools are public schools, and so they fight against it. They worship the building instead of the child, and we're not going to just keep throwing money at that. In fact, I put in a charter school bill 20 years ago when I was first in office, but we were stopped.
Now, let's pause there for a moment, Lieutenant Governor-elect Sears. The appointments of the Secretary of Education and the Superintendent of Education are, I think, the two most important that Governor Youngkin, when he becomes Governor Youngkin, makes. Have you counseled with him on who those individuals ought to be and what their orientation ought to be towards charter schools?
Well, Governor-elect Youngkin, oh boy, do I love saying that. Governor-elect Youngkin has promised us he's going to fire the current superintendent. Day one, fire this current superintendent. Now, I believe he's going to have at least 2 appointments almost immediately on the board because, they roll off.
Yes.
But the board has been stacked now for the past, but we can't really get rid of the policies that we have unless we get rid of some of the laws that we have, you see, because what they're doing is implementing the laws, which is why we needed the House, because we've got to bring back some of that and get rid of it, for example, CRT. And, unfortunately, this left-wing media has been gaslighting us to let us know that, well, there is no such thing as CRT, when we have seen with our own eyes that back in 2015, the Virginia State Board of Education put it on their website and put books recommending the reading of such and the teaching of such.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
What are some of the things that folks can do? I get that question all the time, and now I have Ben Carson as my guest. Dr. Carson, what can some folks do out there, and what are some of the things that you're working on?
Most important things are not to be silent, not to stand in the corner with your head down and hope that somebody doesn't call you a nasty name or try to cancel you, because you can't be the land of the free if you're not also the home of the brave. So when we had a wonderful example last week in Virginia, as people actually stood up, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they all stood up and said, we're in charge. You're not in charge, government. You work for us. We don't work for you. This is what people have to begin to do. If they don't do it, the government will take complete control of all of our lives.
Well, it's interesting because it seems to me that things have gotten so extremely bad that many people who would ordinarily keep sleeping are waking up. So that is the good news, that there are people that just never dreamt that we could have gas prices soaring, grocery prices soaring, literally millions of people coming across our borders. Well, for sure, supply chain problems, weakness around the world, losing many, many billions of dollars of military equipment to our enemies, just levels of horror that I think almost nobody could have believed would happen this quickly.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Yeah, Larry talks for a long time, or has been talking for a long time, about the great work that Job Creators Network does fighting for small business owners. And now they're taking the fight to the courts. The Brandon administration's COVID-19 mandate is an assault on small business owners. While large global companies don't seem to have a problem with the mandate, after all, what's the loss of 100 workers when you have 100,000, right? Losing workers in a small business is a disaster. It can be the difference between thriving and surviving. That's why Job Creators Network filed a motion with the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals asking the court to apply the recent 5th Circuit Court's temporary stay of the mandate to the entire country. Small business owners cannot afford this expensive legal work. That's why Job Creators Network is doing it for them. If you own a small business, if you're a friend to a small business owner, or even to support small business in your area, we are urging you to go to blockthemandate.com. That's blockthemandate.com. You can join with the Job Creators Network to help small business owners fight this illegal mandate. Go to blockthemandate.com. Your help, your support matters. Give a little, give a lot. But go to blockthemandate.com right now. Nothing, by the way, could be more important than that. All right, let's take more of your phone calls as we talk about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and more. We will be talking about that mandate, I promise you. I want to go to Compton, where Tony has been waiting for a bit now. You are on the Larry Elder Show. Bob Friend sitting in. Tony, go right ahead.
Yeah, how you doing, Bob?
I'm good,
I just had a couple of statements. But first of all, you made a statement earlier where you said the OJ Simpson verdict was one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in this country's history.
In the history of American jurisprudence, yes.
Okay. That statement that's an ignorant statement that's rooted in racism. That shouldn't be uttered again. You shouldn't
Rooted
do
in
that.
racism? Hold on. Tell me where the racism comes in that statement, Tony.
Well, I wanted to talk about the other trial, but because you asked me a question, and you have to ask yourself this question and everybody that feels the way they feel. Had OJ Simpson killed 2 black people, would you feel the same way? Now, you can say whatever on the radio, but you have to ask yourself that. That's an internal question. And then you were talking about the jury. If the jury felt that, and it wasn't an all-black jury, it wasn't like there have been many people of color convicted by an all-white jury later found to be innocent. So this wasn't an all-black jury. And
Tony, nobody ever claimed that it was, and I can tell you that in this conversation between 2 people, only one of us has ever mentioned race. My point about O.J. Simpson was about DNA evidence. My point about O.J. Simpson was about physical. No, Tony, hold on a second. Since you brought it up, all right. I don't care what color the jurors were. I don't care what color the victims were. I don't care what color O.J. Simpson is. I felt the same way about O.J. Simpson that I feel about anybody else, in which quite literally every single piece of evidence, both physical and circumstantial, pointed to the very same man. I would tell you that man got away with double murder. And the fact that that particular case, I will say this about race. I did say this at the beginning, and you can agree or disagree, but tell me, the fact that this particular case happened in 1994 with the murder, and then 1995 is when the trial ended and happened, that it was just 3 years removed from the Rodney King riots, the Rodney King trial of the officers and so forth. That did bring about a racial component in this in America.
You're right.
But as it pertains to the evidence in that case, that jury was terrified of A, themselves being targeted, and blacks and whites, and B, terrified of Los Angeles and San Francisco. And I mean, let's just pick from the West Coast and all the way headed to New York. Every major urban center would have burned. You know it, and so do I.
No, hold on. Let me respond to your statement. First of all, you're talking to one of the few people, I worked for the police department at the time, that saw the evidence. So your statement that you just made is not true. We're going to leave it at that. The next statement.
No, we're not. We're not going to retry the case, Tony. But if you can tell me a piece of evidence, hold on. If you can tell me that there was a piece of evidence presented in that trial that pointed to another killer and named that person, then I will acquiesce, and I will say, okay, thank you. I was wrong on that point. You're correct. But I watched that trial too. And I have studied that trial after. I have read books about that trial and watched documentaries from legal experts who do not have a racial bone in their body. Hold on. And not one piece of that evidence implicated another human being in this world other than O.J. Simpson. Now, if you can disprove that, go ahead.
Okay, now, you made the statement about the jury feeling get back. Why do you think? And they say that a lot about black.
No. Hold on, Tony. You're hold on. You're dodging and weaving, man. I feel like we're in an Ali fight here, and you got some shake and bake, and you're moving on me. You brought up the statement that.
But you just said
hold on. You said that I was incorrect. That you're a police officer, and you saw some of the evidence in this case somehow, some way. Okay, police department, fine. Hold on, Tony. But let's stay in the same ring here. You said that working for the police department, fine. That you saw evidence that maybe other people didn't see, fine. You said that what I said about no evidence pointing to anybody other than OJ Simpson was wrong, and I said, okay, prove it. Tell me what other person, evidence that you saw, pointed to being guilty or responsible for Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman's murders. Let's stay right there. You said I was incorrect. There was evidence that pointed to someone else. I want to know who that someone else was.
I can't tell you who the someone else is, but I can tell you that there were, and this is, if you study the case, you know this, there were 2 other sets of footprints in the blood of Nicole and Ron Goldman. 2 other sets of footprints.
Okay. Okay. So tell me to who else was even investigated as a potential suspect in that case. See, I don't like people doing revisionist history, Tony. I don't suffer this lightly, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here. You tell me who else was even investigated, because the police were desperate to solve that case, and you know as well that if O.J. Simpson was truly innocent, doggone well that they wanted America's, and one of America's favorite athletes / actors to be acquitted if he really didn't do this, because that's a horrible thing.
Bob, I'll
so in the zeal to find the real killer here, name somebody else that they could even open an investigation of other than Orenthal, James Simpson, a double murderer.
Have other people been convicted of murder and been 100% innocent? All the evidence pointed to them, and they've
no, not like that. Nope. The first part of the answer to the first part of your question, Tony. The answer to the first part of your question is yes. People have been convicted who are completely innocent.
And all the evidence.
No, don't go there. That's the second part. That's the second part, and that's the part where you lose yourself and you lose this argument. Because those cases in which people have been convicted and they were innocent, they were convicted on circumstantial evidence and presumption. When only physical evidence points to one individual, that person is responsible. We'll be right back.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Is the beast ever going to act like they're fair? Are they? We'd be treated to a 24/7 barrage of condemnation if Donald Trump referred to Satchel Paige as a Negro. In May of 2016, Barack Obama signed a law banning the use of the word from the federal government. In 2013, the Census Department banned the word. We don't say Negro. And if you slip when you're a Democrat mush brain president, you get all kinds of cover from the media. Now, if you're a sportscaster and you say something on air that sounds like the N-word, your career is finished. You're over.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one.
I have to tell you, I haven't sat in front of a lot of judges in real time. I did it once for a speeding ticket in my life. I have watched many trials on TV, real ones. I don't think I've ever seen a judge as pissed as that. He actually looked, if you weren't watching on the video, he looked infuriated. He was jumping up in his seat and he said, "Don't get brazen with me," to the deputy district attorney.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
33 minutes past the hour as we continue. Bob Brandt sitting in for Larry Elder, who is in Phoenix, along with Prager, and who else is out there? Charlie Kirk is out there in Phoenix, and I'm sure they're having a great to-do on stage in Phoenix. On AM 960, The Patriot. Thank you very much, good sir. And I'm sure they're having a great time. We're having a great time discussing the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, and I'm taking your phone calls on it. Before I do that again, though, I want to remind you that when we're done and your day is over and you want to put your little head on a pillow and go to sleep, it would be really great if it was on a MyPillow. Now, you know that MyPillow doesn't have any of their box stores or any of their shopping channels anymore. They've been part of cancel culture, so they're not spending money there. They want to pass the savings on to you. Get the lowest price in history of the MyPillow for their classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now $19.98 with the promo code. They also have queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98. And the kings are $89.98, down to $29.98 with your promo code. Now, MyPillow is not just pillows, you know that. Over 150 products, all designed to help you sleep better, from sleepwear to new beds. Promo code works also at mystore.com and frankspeech.com. Go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-890-1843 with the promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on his standard MyPillow. That's mypillow.com, promo code Larry, or 800-890-1843. Promo code is Larry. So I want to share this with you real quick. I played you Lionel Hutt's School of Law graduate Thomas Binger, one of the two assistant prosecutors butchering the Kyle Rittenhouse case because there's no case to try. Here's the other, James Krause, assistant district attorney. Listen to this this Mensa member.
Why do you get to immediately just start shooting? As Mr. Binger said, he brought a gun to a fist fight. And he was too cowardly to use his own fist to fight his way out.
Now, first of all, if you were to see this marshmallow man that made this comment, it would make it a little bit funnier when I tell you. that this guy probably couldn't pick up his hocks to defend himself against a fist attack to save his life, quite literally. So what he wants you to believe, that if I were on top of him, pummeling him repeatedly, raining down blows, ground and pound, I believe is what they call it in MMA, and he had a gun in his hand, he would just take the beating or try to stop me with his hands rather than fire the gun to stop me from beating him into a coma. That's what he wants you to believe, because if you use the gun, that means you're too cowardly to use your fist. Is he really playing the schoolyard name-calling game? What's the matter, chicken? What's the matter, sissy? Don't want to fight? Can't fight, huh? Got to use a gun? Does he really think that is going to have an impact with the jury? He brought a gun to a fist fight. Let me ask you something, Doughboy, James Krause. Who declared it a fist fight? Who declared fist fight? Huh, Stay Puffed? Who declared it a fist fight? There are guns being fired. There are fires being set. There are assaults taking place. People are pointing guns at him, by the way. I love that part, too. Who says he gets to start shooting just because somebody pointed a gun at his head? He's getting beaten by a skateboard. Yeah, well, you know what he really should have done? What he really should have done, Marshmallow Man, right, is pull out his own skateboard and let's have a little skateboard-to-skateboard combat. Let's see who's better with the board. Because, you know, if somebody comes at you with a knife and you've got a gun, you're a coward if you don't holster that gun and pull out your own knife, and let's see who's better with edged weapons. We'll see who gets out of this. You see, the reason guns were invented, you hot, creamy bowl of goo, is because people don't want to be attacked. And people who cannot defend themselves in a close-up attack want to keep the attacker away. So they want to stop them from a distance. And hence, firing this thing out of a barrel to stop somebody who is coming to attack them is a lot better than trying to physically ward them off. It kind of had its precursor with edged weapons on the ends of sticks. They were called spears. Keep them away. Keep them at a distance. So I suppose somebody who's beating somebody else with their fists, if you've got a spear, you should put that down and just engage in the fist fight. Back in much earlier times, then they developed arrows, which you can also use from quite a distance away. And then they developed guns. Guns used defensively to keep people away so they don't have to engage in fistfights is a part of the law. It's why we have Second Amendment rights and concealed carry rights. Now, nobody's sitting here saying this is a concealed carry or a Second Amendment issue. It's not. It's a self-defense issue. But for this bowl of pudding to sit there and tell everybody that Kyle Rittenhouse was too much of a coward to throw his hands, that's hilarious. We'll be right back.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
What, is he charged with first-degree murder?
That's right, 2 counts.
How is that possible? It's an altercation. I mean, first-degree murder is where you're like, I'm going to murder this person and go to their home with, you know, not some sort of bar fight gone wrong.
Yeah, so you're right, actually. That would be what you're talking about would potentially be either voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, that's what I never understood about this.
Or second-degree murder because it was more indiscriminate. What they're saying is, what the prosecution's argument is that Kyle Rittenhouse brought his gun because he intended to murder these BLM protesters and that he had vengeful intent. Now, what's interesting to me is that the prosecution just a few minutes ago before I came on the show just rested in this case after about a week and a half of testimony. They did not present a single shred of evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse showed up with intent to hurt anyone.
Well, but this is what I can't understand, is that the judge, the pretrial, arguments, because this is just, you have months to submit, motions to dismiss. You're trying to tell me no one looked at this? They say, wait a second. You're charging a guy who got in an altercation was, by the way, the guy that Kyle Rittenhouse killed in self-defense was like a child rapist or something, right? He was like a child pedophile or something. Is that right?
Multiple count child rapist. And honestly, the
I'm not saying he deserves to die because of it, but
right.
let's
The
just
details of that case, if anyone wants to see it, it's absolutely horrific.
This is not Gandhi, okay? Let's just.
But what's interesting, what's actually relevant to this is that he had just been released from a hospital where he was being held on a psychiatric hold.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Creeps who've had some financial success in life. We're the bad. We need to be punished. Although not Pawlowski. Did you hear she pushed back on the capital gains tax increase? She didn't like that, and she's a wealthy woman. But anyway, it turns out the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center has taken a look at Build Back Better. They're saying about 30% of middle-income households will be taxed and pay additional taxes, have a tax increase in 2022. Whoops! No, say it isn't so, Joe. Say it isn't so. Come on.
Come on, man.
Did you lie to us again? Did you not tell the truth? And some low and middle class and middle income households, according to the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center, which has reviewed Build Back Better, they will pay more per year in taxes if the plan is implemented. You know, obviously they sat around the White House, they said, let's try this. Let's say that this massive spending won't cost anything. You know, it'll be a little bit like Biden calling Satchel Paige a Negro, and then we'll say he didn't call Satchel Paige a Negro. We'll see if they buy it. It doesn't cost a thing. It's free. Just like free college is really free. Wink, wink. Bunch of liars.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I get it. Oh, goodness gracious. Some of the best radio in radio happens off the radio. And this is the perfect bumper music. Hey, friends, if you like watching The Larry Elder Show, you are going to love, or excuse me, I'm doing that backwards. If you like listening to The Larry Elder Show, you're going to love watching The Larry Elder Show. And we are loving SalemNewsChannel.com, and we hope you are too. If you have not yet downloaded the app for Salem News Channel, do it. It's so easy. You just tap that app, then you tap the live show that's on right now, whether it's Hugh Hewitt or Mike Gallagher or Gorka or anybody, or Dennis or Charlie or me or Larry Elder or anybody else. It's just so great. I mean, you take your radio with you and you can watch. And we try to provide some very compelling video content to go with what we're doing on the radio side. So go to SalemNewsChannel.com. You can watch these shows, including this one. And in fact, if you see me right now, you'll see that I am flexing and sporting the Hillsdale College logo. I am a Hillsdale dad and a proud one. My daughter Jaden is killing it up at the Dale. But seriously, it's an easy thing to do. Just download it from the Apple or the Android store. Watch it on Roku. Type Salem News Channel into the search bar. Come and check us out. We are the antidote to the mainstream media, period, point blank. All right, let's go back to the calls. We're going to hit Sacramento next. Nancy, thank you for your patience. You are on The Larry Elder Show. Bob France sitting in. Go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Anyway, I'm just calling to say, since the jurors are afraid for their lives, and I'm sure this is not the first time, how come they're not putting jurors just like how they do in a police lineup, where you cannot, the suspects, they cannot see who's trying to identify them?
Well, I can tell you this: they have 18 jurors in the room listening to the case, and then what they did, as I understand it, and if somebody wants to correct me on this if I'm wrong, you can, but I think I understand it. What they did, Nancy, is before they went to deliberate, they held a raffle. They literally did the old school, put everybody's name in a hat or in a box or in a bowl or whatever, and they pulled randomly 12 names out. And those 12 jurors are the ones who are actually deliberating. So if they did that, it may be to kind of, conceal the identity so people don't know which 12 of the 18 actually went ahead and deliberated this verdict and came back with their decision. So that's kind of what you're talking about, I think, to a degree. They try to keep the jurors, private information. Their names are supposed to not be in the media, their identities, their addresses, their phone numbers, and so forth. So they try to keep them as confidential as possible, but I don't know that it's possible, particularly in a trial where you're allowed to have media there with cameras. The jurors aren't going to be on camera, and jurors aren't going to be seen, and jurors aren't going to potentially be identified.
Well, whatever works. I don't know the technicalities of it, but, if they're afraid for their lives, perhaps, in any future cases, perhaps the best bet would be, there could be cameras in the room, but then it'll be just them there.
Well, your idea is not a bad one, Nancy. When they hold, when they have victims or witnesses trying to identify suspects in a lineup, they usually use a two-way mirror. The victim / witness or whomever is on one side of the glass, the lineup is on the other side, and they can't see the victim or the witness that is pointing to them or identifying them. So why not have a jury box that is self-contained, other than the fact that it would be extraordinarily uncomfortable and hot, and to have 12 people inside a box being hidden behind a piece of glass in a contained area. But if there was a way to put them in a room with a two-way mirror, in which mirrored glass or whatever, in which they could see what's going on in the courtroom and hear everything, and neither the prosecution nor the defense nor the audience or the gallery of people who are there can see them, maybe that's a good way to protect them. Maybe that's a thought. It's not a bad idea. And it's something that may be needed if juries continue to be terrified into producing the correct verdict, and in order to keep the peace, they're willing to sacrifice an innocent defendant. And I don't care who that defendant is, by the way. If they're innocent, and they are convicted by a jury that is afraid of the ramifications socially and publicly or in their own private lives, and they vote to convict that innocent person, then obviously our criminal justice system is broken beyond repair. Let's hope that never comes to pass, although it already has in terms of the fearful juries voting the wrong way against what the evidence shows. Louisville, Kentucky is our next stop. Charles, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Bob France sitting in. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hey, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I was debating on whether or not to call and talk to you about this, but anyway, you talk about doxing,
right?
And you just talk right through it, like, well, yeah, it's something, but what is it? Well, I can tell you, there's a lot more to it than what you might think. The people on the left are like bees. Think of them as bees. And they're in every government agency. They're in every business. They're in your supermarkets. They're everywhere. And they're like little bees. And they're there. And if you're getting doxed, you're going to get stung. They're going to, when you go in there, your car is marked. They've got phones, and it shows up on their phone that you're there. So they're already waiting for you, and they're watching for you. And when you
that is a very good explanation.
Whatever you do,
Charles, that's a very good explanation. The bee analogy is one that I can go with, and I will repeat and I will use in future conversations, because that is exactly right. When they dox jurors or dox, people who are supposed to remain private with the intention of terrifying them and stopping them from doing something like, for example, casting the correct verdict or vote in a verdict in a jury. They give out their phone numbers, they give out their addresses, they give out whatever information they have on them so people can identify them, take pictures of them, circulate them, and then, yes, harass them and their families in public arenas for the rest of their lives. It's a terrifying thing, not to mention identity theft as well. I've got more. I'll be right back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody. Because he was black. You need to wake up. Jewish house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga. Oh, okay. That's a big difference. You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
bedwench,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
house Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a
Coon award over there. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The recent war on history threatens to erase America's past. The Pilgrims, hailed by Movie Guide as inspiring, combats the lies to reveal America's true history.
They were poor. They were outcasts. They were enemies of the state for their refusal to submit to the Church of England.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible. The idea of self-government and rule from within, all these are within that body of Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
Find out what everyone is talking about. Watch this new documentary to see God's providence in the lives of the Pilgrims.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
So, having a discussion off the air about doxing and talking about whether it's illegal and whether it should be a federal crime or what have you, it is illegal because doxing is considered intimidating and harassing, posting someone's private information online so that they can be intimidated and harassed makes somebody who does the doxing responsible for intimidation and harassment. So that's a crime. Also, according to what I'm reading, to dox someone is done with the intent of stalking them so that they are stalked by either the doxer or other people. So under stalking laws, one can be charged and potentially convicted of stalking with doxing laws. As it pertains to this case, since that's what we're talking about, the judge in the case, Judge Bruce Schrader, acknowledged last week that he has confirmation that jurors have been spied upon. Quote, "This morning at the pickup, there was someone there who was video recording the jury. The officers approached the person and required him to delete the video. If it happens again," the judge said, "police are instructed to take the phone used to record." So this revelation that someone was spying on the jury comes after Cortez Rice, who's a Minnesota-based activist who was very close to George Floyd. Well, that tells you all you need to know about him. Career criminals tend to hang together. Said, "I ain't even going to name the people that I know that's up in Kenosha. I mean, in the Kenosha trial. But there's cameras in there," he said, after leading a protest against a Minnesota judge inside her own private apartment building. He then claimed he never knew who the people were who were spying on the Rittenhouse jury, only that they were being spied upon, which of course is a way of what? Threatening them. Making these statements publicly to the media is telling the jurors, yeah, I know you're being watched, you're being followed, you're being recorded, you're being spied upon, and guess what that means? You are going to be potentially victimized. So you better do things the right way. You better do what we want you to do. You better provide the result that we're asking for. Eddie is in Los Angeles. Eddie, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, hi. Good afternoon, or evening, I should say. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. What's on your mind?
So I was just thinking, I just had like this epiphany of, first of all, going back to what the other lady was saying from Sacramento, about the judge should be behind a glass wall or something like that. I don't think the names at all should ever even be posted with the jury. So I would say like something kind of like how the Squid Game had it, player or jury number 456001. I think that should go into more or less effect. And for the jury, I don't think they should be from a city of where they're actually being on trial for somebody like Rittenhouse, because then there's no influence whether or not they should.
That's a great point. I've heard a lot of people say jurors should come from other areas or other states to avoid this kind of conflict. Thanks for the call, my friend. We'll be back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one.
I have to tell you, I haven't sat in front of a lot of judges in real time. I did it once for a speeding ticket in my life. I have watched many trials on TV, real ones. I don't think I've ever seen a judge as pissed as that. He actually looked, if you weren't watching on the video, he looked infuriated. He was jumping up in his seat and he said, "Don't get brazen with me," to the deputy district attorney.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
What are some of the things that folks can do? I get that question all the time, and now I have Ben Carson as my guest. Dr. Carson, what can some folks do out there, and what are some of the things that you're working on?
Most important things are not to be silent, not to stand in the corner with your head down and hope that somebody doesn't call you a nasty name or try to cancel you, because you can't be the land of the free if you're not also the home of the brave. So when we had a wonderful example last week in Virginia, as people actually stood up, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they all stood up and said, we're in charge. You're not in charge, government. You work for us. We don't work for you. This is what people have to begin to do. If they don't do it, the government will take complete control of all of our lives.
Well, it's interesting because it seems to me that things have gotten so extremely bad that many people who would ordinarily keep sleeping are waking up. So that is the good news, that there are people that just never dreamt that we could have gas prices soaring, grocery prices soaring, literally millions of people coming across our borders. Well, for sure, supply chain problems, weakness around the world, losing many, many billions of dollars of military equipment to our enemies, just levels of horror that I think almost nobody could have believed would happen this quickly.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. Sometimes there are policies so destructive that at first you don't believe they're true. Joe Biden is currently defending one, his plan to award $450,000 to migrants separated from their families after entering the U.S. illegally. Children of deceased U.S. soldiers are separated from their parents permanently. They don't receive this kind of money. And migrants who enter the U.S. legally certainly don't get this kind of payout. The really big jackpot, it seems, is being reserved for the lawbreakers. There are some obvious truths here. First, behavior that's subsidized gets repeated. Joe Biden is effectively inviting many more illegal immigrants to breach America's open borders. Second, he's betting over time the payoffs will benefit his party in political terms. Meanwhile, the vast majority of Americans watch in shock and dismay as our president, the country's chief law enforcement officer, brazenly rewards lawbreaking, a clear violation of his oath to defend our nation's laws. It's a sorry sight indeed.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
What, is he charged with first-degree murder?
That's right, 2 counts.
How is that possible? It's an altercation. I mean, first-degree murder is where you're like, I'm going to murder this person and go to their home with, not some sort of bar fight gone wrong.
Yeah, so you're right, actually. That would be, what you're talking about would potentially be either voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, that's what I never understood about this.
Or second-degree murder because it was more indiscriminate. What they're saying is, what the prosecution's argument is that Kyle Rittenhouse brought his gun because he intended to murder these BLM protesters and that he had a vengeful intent. Now, what's interesting to me is that the prosecution just a few minutes ago before I came on the show just rested in this case after about a week and a half of testimony. They did not present a single shred of evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse showed up with intent to hurt anyone.
Well, but this is what I can't understand, is that the judge, the pretrial, arguments, because this is just, you have months to submit, motions to dismiss. You're trying to tell me no one looked at this? They say, wait a second. You're charging a guy who got in an altercation was, by the way, the guy that Kyle Rittenhouse killed in self-defense was like a child rapist or something, right? He was like a child pedophile or something. Is that right?
Multiple count child rapist. And honestly, the
I'm not saying he deserves to die because of it, but
right.
Let's
the
just
details of that case, if anyone wants to see it, it's absolutely horrific.
This is not Gandhi, okay? Let's just.
But what's interesting, what's actually relevant to this is that he had just been released from a hospital where he was being held on a psychiatric hold.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
The Pilgrims. They were poor. They were outcasts. They were enemies of the state for their refusal to submit to the Church of England.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible.
Not only did they start self-rule, they started free trade, capitalism, land ownership, all in 10 years with 51 people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
How about it? Final hour of the Larry Elder Show. 6 minutes past the top. Thanks for being with us. Bob France sitting in for the Sage of South Central, who tonight is saging all over Phoenix, Arizona, along with Charlie Kirk and Dennis Prager, having a great event there with our affiliate in Phoenix. And I am so privileged to be with you. I am in the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420 The Answer in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, this is a little bit cooler than I'm pretty sure it is in Phoenix. A little bit. Actually, I had a little bit of snow yesterday for the first time as well. So very glad to be with you, though. And in this last hour, I'm going to talk about a couple of other things, and I want to talk about why it is nobody on the national stage, to my knowledge, is bringing to light the fact that the highest paid federal employee in the United States government is a communist. You might say to yourself, well, who's the highest paid federal employee? Are you saying Joe Biden is a communist? No, I'm not saying Brandon is a communist. And if you, by the way, are you watching this on either the Salem News Channel or Town Hall TV or LarryElder.com, you probably see over my shoulder, and it's a little bit off the screen. I'm going to have to adjust this. Let me see if I can adjust this on the fly. It's hard to do backwards. I want you to be able to see the whole thing. And come on, move over. That's the wrong direction. We'll go there. Yeah, anyway, let's go, Brandon. Is a mantra that I believe in, and that's why it's over my shoulder there. And I will continue to say this as long as Joe Biden / Brandon continues to blank up my country. But at any rate, he's not the highest paid federal employee. Do you know who the highest paid federal employee in America is? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't know that it's Dr. Anthony Fauci. The grand poobah of epidemiology and infectious disease, the man that is the doctor for all Americans, the man who is telling us that we must be vaccinated even though there is no vaccine on the market. There's no vaccine. Those are not vaccines. They had to change the definition of vaccine in order to be able to push the propaganda campaign of the big pharma profit shots. That is what I call these shots, big pharma profit shots. They are being distributed not for public health, but for profit and for politics, nothing more and nothing less. And I don't care if you're talking about the Pfizer shot or the Moderna shot or even the Johnson shot, which is not an RNA, but none of them do what a vaccine has historically been expected to do. A vaccine is supposed to inoculate you against getting infected by a virus, whatever that virus may be. Well, they admit full well that the profit shots that they are pumping out and pumping into people's arms now, 5 to 11-year-olds, and guess what? They're experimenting like Dr. Joseph Mengele himself on infants in the Moderna labs. Infants from birth to 6 months old are now being studied and being injected with Moderna shots. They are experimenting on children while the FDA, which grants emergency use authorization, I want to say that clearly, the FDA admitted during their vote, which was 17-0, to authorize these shots from Pfizer for children ages 5 to 11, said there's no way for us to tell how safe these are until we start giving them out. Then we'll all know. He said that's just the way it is. That's experimentation on the population. And the sad part is, because we're talking about minors here 5 to 11, and in the Moderna case, these infants, it takes the willing acceptance and approval of parents to walk their kids into the lab. Is my child going to be safe after this? We don't know. That's why he's here. Turn him over to us and shut up. And parents are like, okay, whatever you say. So, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is overseeing all of this, is the highest paid federal employee, and Dr. Anthony Fauci is a communist. I'm not saying that with equivocation. I'm not saying that with ambiguity. I'm not saying that with any sort of melodramatic intention. I'm saying it directly and I am saying it clearly. Dr. Anthony Fauci is a communist because not once but twice he has now expressed his belief that individual rights do not matter, that the rights of the state, the demands of the state, trump your individual rights. It is completely counterfactual to a capitalist republic. It is specifically keeping in line with communist ideology. The first time was about a month ago. You may have heard this. Dr. Anthony Fauci doing an interview with the Canadian Broadcasting Company, talking about how it is our duty to receive a vaccine, even if it trumps what we think are our individual rights to make our own decisions about our own bodies. Now, this was, again, about a month ago.
Indeed, you do have personal liberties for yourself, and you should be in control of that. But you are a member of society. And as a member of society, reaping all the benefits of being a member of society, you have a responsibility to society. And I think each of us, particularly in the context of a pandemic that's killing millions of people, you have got to look at it and say there comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision for the greater good of society.
He was not ambiguous either. He was very clear. There comes a time that when the state tells you to, because it's in the best interest of the state, of society, that you must surrender what you think are your individual rights. Now, what I find appalling about this is that he won't even grant that these are our individual rights to do with our bodies what we wish. And I don't want to hear one pro-baby killer call me, by the way, in this next hour and say, well, you're advocating for people to do what they want with their bodies, so you've got to be pro-choice, right? No. Don't start that nonsense. A pregnant woman isn't talking about her body, or at least we are not talking about her body. We're talking about another body, another life that exists in that scenario. She may have her body, her choice, but that child has his or her body and his or her choice as well. So don't play that game with me and start semantics. When we say our bodies, we're talking about whether we take a toxin, an experimental drug, a drug cocktail, into our bodies against our will. Forced medication is what it's called. Forced medication, because the state says it's better for the state, so you give up your individual rights, what you think are your individual rights. Here's what he said again.
You have got to look at it and say there comes a time when you do have to give up what you consider your individual right of making your own decision for the greater good of society.
All right. That is expressing communism clearly and directly. The individual rights of the person, of the citizen, are set aside when the state says so. And if the state says this pandemic is enough of a reason, this public health emergency, for society to say you lose your individual rights, then that's what's done. This is what is done in communist countries. This is what is done in police states. And Anthony Fauci said 1 month ago that that's what he believes in. Now, why do we bring that up today? That's a month old. Well, because this is 3 days old. This is Dr. Anthony Fauci being interviewed by the old bones of Ted Koppel, asking about the very same issue. He doubles down on his statement.
The next day, the president's saying free Michigan, free Virginia. I didn't quite understand what the purpose of that was, except to put this misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes the societal safety.
He didn't stutter. And he said it in 2 different locations, in 2 different interviews. The man believes in communist ideology, not freedom. More coming up.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Is the beast ever going to act like they're fair? Are they? We'd be treated to a 24/7 barrage of condemnation if Donald Trump referred to Satchel Paige as a Negro. In May of 2016, Barack Obama signed a law banning the use of the word from the federal government. In 2013, the Census Department banned the word. We don't say Negro. And if you slip when you're a Democrat mush brain president, you get all kinds of cover from the media. Now, if you're a sportscaster and you say something on air that sounds like the N-word, your career is finished. You're over.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one.
I have to tell you, I haven't sat in front of a lot of judges in real time. I did it once for a speeding ticket in my life. I have watched many trials on TV, real ones. I don't think I've ever seen a judge as pissed as that. He actually looked, if you weren't watching on the video, he looked infuriated. He was jumping up in his seat and he said, "Don't get brazen with me," to the deputy district attorney.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
What are some of the things that folks can do? I get that question all the time, and now I have Ben Carson as my guest. Dr. Carson, what can some folks do out there, and what are some of the things that you're working on?
Most important things are not to be silent, not to stand in the corner with your head down and hope that somebody doesn't call you a nasty name or try to cancel you, because you can't be the land of the free if you're not also the home of the brave. So when we had a wonderful example last week in Virginia, as people actually stood up, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, they all stood up and said, we're in charge. You're not in charge, government. You work for us. We don't work for you. This is what people have to begin to do. If they don't do it, the government will take complete control of all of our lives.
Well, it's interesting because it seems to me that things have gotten so extremely bad that many people who would ordinarily keep sleeping are waking up. So that is the good news, that there are people that just never dreamt that we could have gas prices soaring, grocery prices soaring, literally millions of people coming across our borders. Well, for sure, supply chain problems, weakness around the world, losing many, many billions of dollars of military equipment to our enemies, just levels of horror that I think almost nobody could have believed would happen this quickly.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
21 minutes past the hour. We continue. Bob France sitting in for the Sage, live here in Cleveland, Ohio, the ReliefFactor.com studios of AM 1420, The Answer. That's the home base here. Phone lines are open to you now at 888-871, or excuse me, I've butchered this number twice or three times tonight. 888-971-SAGE. That's 888-971-7243. I want to talk to you about the mandate, and I want to do it in this context. Number one, are you comfortable with the knowledge that the man calling the shots when it comes to your health, your body, the medicine that is being forced into it by the federal government through the unconstitutional act of OSHA in the U.S. Labor Department. Are you comfortable with the fact that the man calling those shots has twice in public interviews expressed his belief that American individual rights should be subjected to the whims of the state? If the state says those rights are suspended because of what's for the greater good, because of what we consider to be in the best interest of the state and of society, then your rights are revoked. That's communism. That's Cuba. That's Russia. That's China. That's Venezuela. That's straight up communism. And I want you to hear the double down. Again, this was in an interview that he did with the decomposing bones of Ted Koppel for some strange reason on CBS. I don't know. But there he was. And he was talking about how President Trump tweeted support for Virginia and Michigan back, of course, in 2020. And he talked about the lockdowns, and he talked about how they should not be locked down and that they should not be forced to do anything. He said free Michigan and free Virginia, and that was just a foreign concept to Anthony Fauci. He said, I have no idea who would say those things. Clearly, freedom is something that Anthony Fauci is either A, not familiar with, or B, not a believer in. But after he said that, he said this.
I didn't quite understand what the purpose of that was, except to put this misplaced perception about people's individual right to...
Did you hear that?
This misplaced perception about people's individual right.
One more time. Your individual rights are not real. It's your misplaced perception that you have them. You don't have them in Anthony Fauci's America.
This misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes...
What?
That supersedes the societal safety.
And there it is. Societal safety as determined by whom? As determined by the highest paid actor in this administration. He makes about $140,000 more a year than Joe Biden does. As determined by the Biden administration and by Dr. Dog killer Anthony Fauci, Dr. Gain of Function research leaking out of a Wuhan lab, Fauci, Dr. Killing orphans in New York to do AIDS studies, Fauci, Dr. Mengele Fauci says, you don't have rights. You have this misplaced idea of individual rights that you don't have when it comes to the safety of society.
That supersedes the societal safety. That, to me, is one of the things that I think went awry.
So that's part A of the question that I want to pose to you, and I want you to answer it 888-971-SAGE. The second one is this. What are you going to do if we lose the court fight? The Fifth has done a great service to us. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has indeed declared that the Labor Department, through OSHA, this mandate on all employees working for companies of 100 or more, must be vaccinated or provide a negative test every week at the employee's own expense, an average of about $80 per test. If we lose when this elevates to the next court level and ultimately ends up in the Supreme Court, if we lose, what are you going to do come January 5? Are you going to roll up your sleeve and take a shot that you know may be very, very, very dangerous for you in order to keep putting food on your table? Or are you going to say, family, we're going to have to tighten our belts for a while I look for something else in a company that's smaller than 100 people because I am going to lose my job? Which one are you going to do? I bring this up in the context of one of the most widely known and respected hospitals and health organizations in America, the Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland clinics are all over. They're not just in Cleveland. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here in Cleveland. Cleveland Clinic has put down the mandate, even though the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals put a stay on that order They're still advancing the mandate and telling their employees you have to have the jab by this particular date or you are gone. This jab, by the way, must be accepted. This big profit jab must be accepted even if you have already recovered from COVID. Why is that significant? The reason that's significant is because of this little thing called natural immunity, this little thing called antibodies, this little thing called true inoculation against infection. And it's something that happens when somebody recovers from a viral infection like this. And you say, yeah, well, I've heard all of that before. What's your point? Here's my point. I was just talking to a Cleveland Clinic healthcare worker 2 days ago who told me they're going to lose their job, and they have said that their medical exemption claim is that I've already had COVID and I am now protected against COVID. And the Cleveland Clinic said, too bad. You've got to get a profit shot on top of your natural infection. And here's why that's insane. June 8th, 2021, headline, no point vaccinating those who have had COVID-19, Cleveland Clinic study says. Scientists from the Cleveland Clinic have evaluated the effectiveness of the coronavirus quote-unquote vaccine, the profit shots, among individuals with or without a history of having the SARS-CoV-2 infection, COVID-19. And what the Cleveland Clinic found in their study of 52,000 employees, what they found is that there is no significant advantage to taking the profit shot for people who have already been infected, that their immunity was as or more robust than that provided by the profit shots. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? The clinic itself said that we did a study, and we found that individuals who had proven laboratory confirmed symptomatic COVID-19 infection are getting no benefit whatsoever from a COVID-19 vaccination. And vaccines can be safely prioritized to those who have not been infected before. They did the study. They know that if you've had it, you don't need the profit shot, but they're going to fire you if you don't take it anyway. So when a medical research company stops believing their own medical research, what good are they at all? I'll be right back.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
I've just heard so much about this, and nobody seems to be taking it seriously.
This is the exact reason that in normal science, this is not normal science by any stretch of the imagination, we do benefit risk analysis. And obviously that is different for each person. But here we're not doing that. We're just saying everybody needs to do this. And we're completely neglecting natural immunity, which is extremely important. We've recognized it for decades and decades before now. Now they won't even want to talk about it or acknowledge it at all.
What do you reckon is behind that? I mean, this is a big thing. What can be behind something like that?
Well, I can't think of any scientific valid reason for doing it. There could be political reasons or other things going on, but I can't think of any scientific reason why you would ignore the evidence and the facts and just push a one-size-fits-all ideology.
We also know that many people have objections to these vaccines because all three of them, in one way or the other, involved aborted children. There's no getting around that. And so if somebody has an objection to that, how is it that the government can wipe away religious liberty and say, you've got to get this, if you want to keep your job, you've got to get this?
For the government to mandate away your religious liberty is a real issue. And even the federal court has recognized that and put a stay on the mandate.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
And that's why religious people are far more patriotic, frankly, about the Constitution, because they don't believe those rights were given to them by the state, but rather by something larger. And in Europe, I don't think that people believe that. They used to turn to monarchies, then they turned to fascism and communism, at least in the last 100 or more years, and it doesn't seem to work. And now they're just turning towards the European Union and bureaucrats to sort of guide them as their new priests.
One of the reasons I am always curious about why Europe went this way, but why America admires it, how come we got this disease when it's clearly not working? And I think the answer is in what I call the semester abroad disease. It's like mad cow disease. If you spend a semester abroad when you're 21, you have a wonderful time. You eat well, you have a party for 6 months, and then you come home and you extrapolate from that everything must be like being a student in Europe for 6 months when there's nothing at all to do with an American having fun in Europe for 6 months. David, this all started to rise in the United States when we started to ship our college students away for a semester in Florence. And then they come back and they think, wow, Europe is great.
That as well, I had thought about that, but also just tourism, right? I mean, when we go to Europe, it's beautiful. When people go to Hungary, they sit by the river, the Danube, and sip coffee. But in the real world, about a mile out of the city, things aren't that way. The American home, I think on average, I might be wrong about this, but it's close. It's about 1,000 square feet bigger than the average European home. We live in mansions in our suburbs that most Europeans would not be able to comprehend.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
"33 minutes past the hour as we continue. If you're getting sleepy, maybe you are. If you're in the Eastern time zone, it's 8:34, but probably not if it's only 5:34 out on the west side or somewhere in between. But if you're getting sleepy and when that time arrives, put your little head on a MyPillow and be very, very comfortable. As you know, MyPillow has been victimized by cancel culture. They're not in big box stores anymore. They don't have any shopping channels anymore. And guess what? They want to pass their savings directly to you by selling directly to you without that middleman markup. Get the lowest price in the history of MyPillow right now for the classic standard MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now $19.98 with the promo code Larry. They also have queen size, regularly $79.98, now $24.98. Kings, $89.98, now down to $29.98 with the promo code Larry. MyPillow is not just pillows, as you know, though. Over 150 products, all designed to help you sleep better. Use the promo code Larry on mystore.com and at frankspeech.com as well. Go to mypillow.com or call 800-890-1843. Use the promo code Larry to take advantage of Mike's special offer on his standard MyPillow. That's mypillow.com, code Larry, or call 800-890-1843 again with that promo code Larry. I, of course, am not Larry. My name is Bob France, and I'm sitting in for the Sage. And I want to just hit this with you real quick before I go back to the phones. Real quick, because sometimes you go too fast at the end of a segment, maybe it doesn't sink in. The Cleveland Clinic, one of the biggest and most respected health organizations in the world, certainly in the country, is telling its employees they must be vaccinated or lose their jobs by the January 4th deadline, even if they have already had COVID-19 and don't need the vaccine. And you might say, well, how do you know they don't need the vaccine? And again, my answer to you is because the Cleveland Clinic says so. They did the study of 52,238 patients. A positive PCR test was considered to define the infection. Participants received 2 doses of the Pfizer, BioNTech, or Moderna COVID-19 vaccines, profit shots, at an interval of 28 days. A participant was considered vaccinated after 14 days after receiving the second dose. Similarly, a person who tested positive at least 42 days before the vax was considered previously infected. So their study, to put that in layman's terms, was we want to study people who got COVID-19 naturally and may have some antibodies build up for natural immunity. We're going to compare that to people who don't have natural immunity. They didn't get infected, and we just gave them our big pharma profit shots. And here's what we found. directly. Individuals who have laboratory-confirmed symptomatic COVID-19 infection are unlikely to benefit from COVID-19 vaccination, and vaccines should safely be prioritized to those who have not been infected before. Did you get that? If you have already had it, you have no need for a vaccine, says a Cleveland Clinic study. And yet Cleveland Clinic policy now says, too bad. Get the jab or you're fired, whether you've had it or not. Understand, very specifically, they could not find one individual who was not as more robustly protected with their natural immunity than anybody who took the profit jab. And I will tell you this, the natural immunity doesn't wane. The profit jabs do. Why do you think they're telling you boosters now? Boosters for the immunocompromised. And then, well, boosters for everybody. Everybody 18 and over. Take your boosters because it's fading. The effectiveness of the profit jabs are fading. You know what doesn't fade? Natural immunity. How do I know? Because I am sitting here right now on live radio from coast to coast as a walking, talking vaccine. I had COVID-19 12 months ago, last November, almost to the date. I had COVID-19. I had my antibodies checked 6 months after my bout with COVID-19, which, by the way, was very quickly, alleviated. But I had my antibodies checked 6 months after, and I had them checked again last month, 11 months after infection. To be considered positive for the COVID-19 antibodies, which means protected, you had to have a rating of 0.08 or higher in antibody count. 11 months after my COVID infection, my antibody count wasn't 0.08. It wasn't even 0.10. It wasn't even 11 or 12.0. It's 1,442. I should be just giving out platelets for free just to save people around me. Tap a vein, step right up, no waiting. Human immunity lives right here. And I want everybody to know it. They're lying to you. We'll be back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the
Don't
defense testimony.
get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that. That's number one.
I have to tell you, I haven't sat in front of a lot of judges in real time. I did it once for a speeding ticket in my life. I have watched many trials on TV, real ones. I don't think I've ever seen a judge as pissed as that. He actually looked, if you weren't watching on the video, he looked infuriated. He was jumping up in his seat and he said, "Don't get brazen with me," to the deputy district attorney. Look, predictions, it's a mug's game. But right now, based upon how the judge is responding to the way that this evil bunch of hyenas are trying to make... the fact of the matter of this, Rittenhouse killed 2 people. Both of them were criminals. One of them had just been released from jail for doing what? Raping young boys. If it were up to me, that would be a death penalty automatic in America. Rape a child, death. End of story. That's the reason nations create capital punishment. He got out, which is just so understanding and empathetic of us. He threatened people all day, and then he used force and threatened Kyle Rittenhouse.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody. Because he was black. You need to wake up.
You was your house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga. Oh, okay. That's a big difference. You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
Bedouin,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
house Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a coon award over there. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You got to stop doing that to me, man. You just freaked me out. I just thought my wife was calling. That's my wife's ringtone. I'm afraid when I go in the water. 44 minutes past the hour means 16 minutes until the top of the hour. She loves that I have Barracuda as her phone number, by the way. It's an inside joke with us. But I swear every time I hear that song on the radio, I'm like looking at my phone. And now I just heard it coming in on the Larry Elder Show. Let's go back to it. We're going to talk now to Bill, who is in Pennsylvania on the Larry Elder Show. It's Bob France sitting in. Bill, thanks for your patience. Go right ahead. Hello, Bill. Are you there? All right. Bill may have fallen asleep. He's been on hold for quite some time. I'll put him on hold. I love that. You know what I love even better though? Hold on a second. Now we're gonna have to play here real quick. This is one of my favorite drops in radio, and I want to thank Pastor Artur Pawlowski from Canada. He's a Polish priest in Canada who fought the police and threw them out when they tried to cancel his church service because of Canadian lockdown restrictions. And Pastor Pawlowski, this was him to the police. And this is what I say to callers who aren't there or that I'm really just sick of talking to. Come on.
Out! 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 Immediately out! I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. I don't care what you have to say. Out!
By the way, I have fun with that drop. But what I don't have fun with is the fact that Artur Pawlowski is in a very serious predicament right now. And I don't know if you know this. Pastor Pawlowski came to an American tour of America, quite frankly. He was just visiting a lot of states. He was giving a lot of speeches. He was talking about the police state that Canada has become. And moreover, he and his family come from Poland. I mentioned he's a Polish priest. And his family lived through the Nazi invasion, experienced what it's like for a police state to begin and to begin its takeover. He's now watching it play out again in Canada, and he came down here to tell us he sees the exact same things here when it comes to the surrender of our freedoms, when it comes to having our rights restricted, First Amendment rights, to assemble, to petition the government for redress of grievances, to speak, and so forth. He sees it all, and he saw it firsthand, and his family did, in Poland. And for pushing back against that up in Canada, I believe he's from Ontario, for pushing back against that and holding his church services and throwing the police who come in to break up the church service because of COVID rules, and he threw them out, immediately out. He is facing 4 to 6 years in prison. He was here in the United States doing this tour. He knew when he would back he could be arrested. Did he hide here and stay here? No. He went back to fight it anyway. So I have a lot of fun with that drop that he gave us, but I want all of our prayers to be with a true, courageous hero named Pastor Artur Pawlowski, and I hope you understand that. Glendora, California, Tom, you're on the Larry Elder Show. Thanks for your patience, Tom. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Bob. I'll keep this real brief and try to introduce a bit of levity. I love Larry, the guy. American hero. He's gutsy. When it comes to Larry Elder, I want to be the white face, black supremacy, and make him president. I love the guy. I want to salute him if I could. With a 10-second limerick, I think he'd love this. God bless him. A wise, brave in this insane age is smart and funny. Larry the Sage. Voters showed no love. The Sage should be the Gov. These stupid voters cause me great rage. And Larry, God bless you. I hope you win for president. You're a true American hero. We'd like to clone you and make millions more of them.
I could not agree more, my friend, and this is my response to that. Fantastic. Well done, sir. And I love it. I love it. You want to be the the white face of black supremacy. Vote Larry Elder for president. I would get behind that in a heartbeat. Dallas, Texas is where George is on the Larry Elder Show. Hi, George. It's Bob. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Bob. I appreciate you leaving me there and let me get the opportunity to speak my mind on a few things. I'm going to try and tie all that you had on tonight that I can. Wow, a lot of stuff. But, you know, the whole premise around it was just our freedoms, right? I mean, everything going back to the call on the OJ where, you know, people made a decision. It's the first time in my life that I've heard racism on that case. I don't know if you ever had it in the past, but that kind of tweaked my eyebrow a little bit. And then going back to Nancy's call, I'd like to kind of chat about that where, you know, we're at a point where we want to put yours behind two-way glass or one-way glass, whatever it is, because we don't have these freedoms. And to your Fauci point, it just all ties together where we're just losing our freedoms. And, you know, it's kind of a moot point. I just get tired of talking about it. But isn't it wild how we do have to discuss all this in today's times and how we're all trying to fight for our individuality, and at the same time we don't have it?
No, and you know what? There's one issue I would take with what you just said, and that was we said losing. And I don't mean to be flippant about it, but it's already lost.
No, go ahead.
Our freedoms have already been taken away from us, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. By this, George, and thank you for the call. Keep listening as I kind of address some of what you just said. A lot of people don't realize it. This country is not the same free country today that it was 10 months ago. All right, than it was on January 20th. And the reason why is this. 10 months ago, even 2 months ago, you did not have to take a government-ordered toxin into your body in order to remain employed. Okay? Literally. In order to have your livelihood, you must now take a government-ordered toxin into your body. And it doesn't matter whether you are 5 or 85. It doesn't matter whether you're 20 pounds or you're 420 pounds or 130 pounds, right in between. It doesn't matter your age, your health condition, or anything. It's one size fits all. Take this toxin or lose your job. That doesn't happen in a free country. That doesn't happen in a free capitalist republic. That happens in a communist police state. And we are in that right now. We are fighting it to stop it, but the reality is when we say we have to defend our freedoms, it's too late for that. We've lost them. Now we have to reclaim our freedoms. We have to win our freedoms back. They have been taken from us. Thomas Massey, U.S. Representative Thomas Massey, I think put this better than anybody has in this entire affair. He tweeted this last week. Anyone who believes a U.S. president can unilaterally impose a medical treatment on all Americans as a condition of employment is constitutionally illiterate and morally bankrupt. And I'll be right back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Obama tore this country down. No one stood up to him. Nobody. Because he was black. You need to wake up.
Juice your house nigga. I didn't call you a nigga. Oh, okay. That's a big difference. You're Uncle Tom.
And Uncle Tom is somebody who has sold out by embracing the white man.
Uncle Tom,
bedwench,
bootlicker,
black white supremacist,
chucking and jiving,
House Negro,
coon,
Uncle Tom,
coon.
I have a coon award over there. Most black people don't believe that other blacks can be independent, free thinkers.
I believe the legacy and the ancestry of black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country. I know that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
The liberal will try to control a black person through the concept of racism because they know that we are very proud, emotional people.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The recent war on history threatens to erase America's past. The Pilgrims, hailed by Movie Guide as inspiring, combats the lies to reveal America's true history.
They were poor. They were outcasts. They were enemies of the state for their refusal to submit to the Church of England.
The Mayflower was a cargo ship, but the most precious cargo that was carried across the Atlantic were the ideas in the hearts of the Pilgrims that were drawn from the Bible. The idea of self-government and rule from within, all these are within that body of Pilgrims.
The Pilgrims founded America for all intents and purposes.
Find out what everyone is talking about. Watch this new documentary to see God's providence in the lives of the Pilgrims.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
We have got about 3.5 minutes of the Larry Elder Show left for this evening / late afternoon, depending on where you are. Let's make the most of them. It starts in Bloomington, Indiana. Robert, you're on the Larry Elder Show. It's Bob France sitting in. Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Good, Robert. What's on your mind?
Yeah, listen, first of all, I like you very much when you're on Fox News. Keep up the good work there. The reason I was calling is I'm kind of confused here. What are they? We have a worker will get fired for not taking the vaccine. However, if you're a member of Congress, you don't have to take the vaccine. If you're a legal immigrant, you don't have to take the vaccine to come into the United States. You got Dr. Fauci, who's doing diabolical experiments. I mean, this is getting totally out of hand. My question to you is, how soon before this goes to the Supreme Court and gets ruled as unconstitutional? What do you think?
Well, I want very badly to believe that it's going to go to the Supreme Court and be ruled unconstitutional. There is a 6-3 majority of people who are supposed to be constitutionalists, originalists, not activists. I would hope that we don't lose two of them in this fight. And I think it's very, very clear that what the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled is that there are grave constitutional questions or issues that they found with this OSHA mandate. So I think that the groundwork is there for this to be turned over. Your question about how soon, That's another issue I don't know. It's going to have to go through, of course, a few other levels before it gets to the Supreme Court. But I believe that the constitutionality of this is absolutely missing and absent, which is what the Fifth Circuit said, and I think that will eventually be upheld. Cross your fingers and say your prayers. Susan is in Georgia on on the Larry Elder Show. Go ahead, Susan. Susan, are you there?
Hey, I love the way you... I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I love the way you call... I'm here. I love the way you called Fauci a comment, and I love the way you called it the profit shot, and I just wanted to say, I just bought The Real Anthony Fauci by RFK Jr., and he, unlike most Democrats, he doesn't kiss Fauci's caboose, and he's really taking his inventory. I really recommend it.
Well, I appreciate that, the recommendation, and I appreciate that you like the way I talk about these things. I just say it the way that it is, and there's no question about it. Dr. Anthony Fauci has now, on 2 different occasions on live media, professed his support for communist ideology. Ask me, that makes him a communist. I'm not saying anything that we can't figure out for ourselves. Thank you so much, Sean. Thank you to the entire staff. I don't know everybody's names, but they're awesome. Great job. William and Christian, that's who. Thank you both. Thank you to Brad as well for asking me. And thank you to the Sage for letting me sit in the big chair. Hope everybody had a great time. I'll talk to you next time right here on The Larry Elder Show.